Hi, I'm David Boji. You might figure it out. I'm a Vietnam War veteran, and I love horses, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. In today's video, we're going to look at three topics. The first topic is, I'm going to tell you a story about how I often have confused effects with causes. So I'll look at the effects of something going on and I'll go, oh, wow, this is happening to me and they're causing it. And it's not really getting to the true cause of things, because the true cause of things is usually me, not them. The second thing we're going to look at today in the video, so stay tuned for it, is how I do projection as a veteran, and I think it happens to a lot of veterans and a lot of people everywhere, actually. It's easier just to project things on others than to take responsibility for our own perception. So it's called perception is projection. And so if you want to learn about that, stay tuned. And the third thing, and I think you're definitely going to want to get into this, is I'm going to give you 7 steps for dealing with both of these issues that I call the 7 steps of restoring. And it has to do with our work with veterans and their families, police and their families, first responders, etc. And how these things of confusing effect with cause and projecting onto other people, how they affect our lives and what we can do about it. So the 7 steps are the solutions, all right? So please stay tuned for that. And let's get right into it. So the title of this is From Victimhood to Vitality, Healing Through what we call Purview. It's our approach to working with veterans and their families and first responders and their families, because it's all about a family system here, you know. And when we confuse the effect of our trauma with the cause of our pain, we forget we are not the wound. We are healing in motion, and that's what our 7 steps are going to be about in part 3. So, we work with horses because a horse, when we bring veterans and their families to our ranch in Las Cruces, New Mexico, and to another ranch up here in Lake Caballo where I am now, well, those horses, they know what if you're projecting and if you're confusing your cause and your effect, because they can tell by your body language, and I think they can read your spirit. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing what a horse will do. If I go in there and I'm like angry or something, my horses run out of the stalls and into the pastures. But if I'm sad and I'm a little confused about my effects and causes and I'm a little wounded, well, they come up, and I've had a horse named Naughty and actually rub my back and lick my face and just snuggle right with me, and they're herd animals and they try to help. So if you're interested in horses and how they're healing, you got a YouTube channel and Healing with Horses, and you can go to perview.org. But let's talk about this monster effect of treating effects instead of treating causes. And then we'll look at the projection loop, and finally in the third section, the 7 steps of embodied restoring. So be aware here in part 1 of where you are in effect. Where you're playing the victim is the easiest one to understand. The effect as a benefit. Once you understand that benefit, you know why you're playing the victim role, or why you're reacting and getting angry and whatever it is, and those emotions come up, instead of stopping and saying, whoa, let me follow the 7 steps that I'm going to teach you in part 3. So we're going to shift your perspective around today from being in effect, and we'll explore if you're in effect, like playing the victim or whatever it is, there's a benefit to you. I don't know what it is, but we're going to find out. And understanding the learning and what you deserve to learn, which will get you into cause, taking steps to change a situation instead of bemoaning it. And every reaction is a signal. Every projection, when we get to part 2, has a story behind it, what I call a story filter. And what if the war you're fighting is not with the world, but with the way you've learned to see the world? So let's dive into part 1 now. And there's 3 parts, so stay tuned. Trauma speaks through patterns. Blame, shame, avoidance, collapse. The effect monster, I'll call it the effect monster, lives in that space. And the effect monster tries to convince us veterans that there's nothing we can do, that the world is happening to us, and the cause is them out there. But in truth, the shift begins here. Let me tell you a story. I was in Vietnam, and I don't often tell this story, but please don't pass it around. But here it is. I wound up in the hospital. My buddies said we're going out for pizza and got the Jeep, and we were driving around what used to be called Saigon. And they said, oh, let's stop here. Well, it was the hospital. It was a military hospital, and they took me in, held me down physically, and they put a big old needle in my butt, and I was out for 3 days. Well, this happened to me 3 times because I was in effect mode. And there were no horses in Vietnam for me to work with there, and I wish there were, because they could have brought me out of effect mode pretty quickly. So I was overworked and burned the fuse at both ends, and when I woke up at the hospital, a lot of guilt and shame, because there were people there that had missing body parts, missing eyeballs, and missing ears, and I'm laying there, and I'm not missing anything. It's just my head is screwed on the wrong way. So understand what are our thoughts and emotions. This is what I'm learning from Genius Unlocked, to separate out our thoughts, our emotions, and understand that we are, as human animals, we're not that good as an eagle. We can't hear as well as a whale. We can't see as well. All these animals, or dogs, can smell things, and I'm not sure I want to smell those things, but anyway, we don't have all the 100% accuracy in our senses that we think we do. So when we choose to be in emotional state as a veteran, oftentimes it's coming from some past emotional state we haven't processed yet. Let's deal with projection. So Carl Jung, very famous guy, just check him out on Google. And in Genius Unlocked, they call it perception is projection. And this is attributed to Carl Jung's work, Jung, if you're looking for it now. And I hope you're not. I hope you're paying attention. But anyway, oftentimes a veteran will get a projection, and that's why they took me to the hospital 3 times before I got the message and started getting into dealing with the causes of my projection. So these two topics are actually related today. But let's get into solutions. You don't want to know. If you got it, you know what it is. I don't need to tell you about it. If you don't got it, probably this video isn't going to get you that understanding anyway, because you're not a veteran, or you're not married to a veteran, or you're not married to a policeman, or you're not married to a fireman, or people that are in the line of duty and putting their life on the line for America every day. So let me give you 7 simple steps that we do at perview.org. We work with veterans, first responders, and their families that got stress, PTSD, and they're lost in effect, and they're not working on the causes, and they're lost in projections, and they're not dealing with how their perception is filtering things, so they're not really doing it. And once again, I recommend Genius Unlocked if you're a civilian and you want to want to get to know these things, hey, they got a great coaching model. I paid top dollar to learn the coaching model, and I'm part way through it, and it's already producing results. My wife says I'm a better husband. People say I'm easier to get along with now than before Genius Unlocked. So here we go. Step 1. Characterize. Begin by telling the story of your life before you were stuck in effect, before you were projecting. So before this, I was a good listener. I didn't jump to conclusions, things like that. So, and when I deal with horses, the horses can read me, and if I'm in projection, they're aware of it. And if I'm in my effect zone, and boy, you don't want to be around that monster, they run out of the barn. And so it's a good signal that I need to be doing these 7 steps. Second step is we externalize. We meet that effect monster and that projection monster. I'll call them by names because we don't like to call it the person doing this. We like to call it the monster doing this, give it some kind of name, and call it the effect monster, projection monster. And I'll call them out, and I'll say, am I in fight, freeze, flee mode? And can I rate what's going on here with this monster and the effects I'm living in, instead of dealing with the cause and the projection, instead of dealing with my perception? So then step 3, once I got a label for it, I can talk to it, without demeaning my own self. I want my true self to be that higher self that comes out and doesn't get caught in effect and doesn't get caught in projection. So I'll sympathize and say, okay, let's sympathize. What's one benefit of being in effect? Well, I never have to take responsibility for anything. What's one benefit of being projection? Well, I can be a drama queen, drama king, and just get all into my emotional states and let that monster take over. So I don't have to take responsibility. So let's revise. Step 4. Here's where the story starts to shake and quake. And challenge the limits. Challenge those limiting beliefs, thoughts, and emotions and assumptions that I'm having in being in effect, instead of dealing with the cause and dealing with projection, instead of dealing with my perception. So I use horses, I use sand trays, I say, choose something. Veterans don't want to talk about shit. Okay? Can I just be truthful? My grandfather, World War I, didn't want to talk about his shit. My dad didn't want to talk about his shit, but I guess I could have a different word than shit, but whatever. And I didn't want to talk about mine. It was hard for me to talk about what I told you today already. So, but if I don't deal with the shit I'm standing in, and everybody could see it, smell it, taste it, then I'm just fooling myself. So it's time to strategize in step 5. Recall your resistance moments, the little while moments in your life that were small wins against the effect monster, against the projection monster, whatever your monster is, and where I didn't lash out. I stopped. I counted to 10, and I said, am I projecting this, or is this happening, right? Or is it a perception? And am I in effect mode, and woe is me, and I'm a victim, and yada, bullshit. It's time to get into the causes and seed a new story, what we call the true story of yourself, your authentic, genuine self. And that's what we're strategizing here. So we're going to do step 6, and it's real important. If I continue to be stuck in the story of myself as this Vietnam veteran that got thrown in the hospital, and oh my God, I got to depend on other people for my thinking, and I might lash out in emotion at any moment. If I'm that person, hey, I need to write a new history. So here's the history. New history without the monsters. Okay. So, yeah, I was 21 years old in Vietnam. And you know what? I had a multi-million-dollar budget. I was like Radar in the movie MASH. I learned to type when I couldn't type. And after coming out of the hospital, I had time, and I'd been a really good soldier, and they said, you can have any assignment you want here in special services. I said, I'll be a golf pro, thank you. And I'd never been a golf pro, but I got a book, Arnold Palmer, learned to give advice to generals. They didn't know I couldn't play golf. If I know the language and I could tell them how to have an interlocking grip, bring it over their head, and handle their hooks and slices and all that, and they got a better score the next day, they liked what I was doing. And I was their coach, for 6 months in Vietnam, to generals and officers mainly. Enlisted people played golf too, but when they pull up in their staff car and they want their Spalding golf clubs or their Wilson clubs. Anyway, we'd have a conversation about golf. So I learned a lot of things, and that allowed me to get out, be the first one in my family tree to go to college, to graduate first in my class from 2 colleges. And yeah, I was trying to prove that I wasn't completely an idiot, after the Vietnam experience. And now I got really good marriage, and my children are talking to me, and yeah, getting a coaching certificate from Genius Unlocked. What's not to like? So let's go to step 7, the final step. Once you got that new history, you got to have a future. You got to be implementing that history, and we call it publicize in step 7. Now, healing is a communal process. So you need to choose a friend, a family member, a coach, join the Genius Unlocked group, go to perview.com, perview.org, .org.com's taken, by the way, but we did get .org. Tell them, what's your next step? My next step in my life is the following. Here's an example. We're going to work with a one-stop center where you can get a therapist, you can get a coach, you can develop a coaching business as a former veteran, police officer, paramedic, fireman, whatever. Because I think the following is true, and I hope it's not a projection, but I believe that it takes a veteran to help a veteran. It takes a former police officer to help police officers. It takes a former fireman to help firemen. So if that's you, then get a hold of perview.org. I'm David Bogie. Check us out. If you just want to be a coach to civilians or even military, whatever, I recommend Genius Unlocked. They've turned my life around. You can find them, find their website, etc. And deal with that effect monster by taking responsibility for the causes yourself. Be your own enabler, right? Empower yourself. Don't even have an enabler. And if you're doing projection, you know it. I don't have to tell you. And then get a hold of us, and we'll help you. Here's a closing reflection for you. So we've talked about 3 things. 1, we've talked about not confusing effects with cause. If you're in effects, you're not dealing with the cause. And we said perception is projection. We talked about when you're in projection, you're not dealing actually with a reading of your reality. That's a problem. And we've given you 7 steps to deal with it. We've gone through them fairly quickly. It's really important that you deal with the notion of cause and effect. The veteran comes to the ranch here, shoulders tight, stories tighter, and they say, it's the VA, it's my ex-wife, it's my ex-husband, if they're female, whatever. But are they dealing with the causes? I don't think so. So horses are the first step, because a horse is a mirror. They're a biofeedback mirror on you. And you can't lie to a horse, okay? A horse can read you like a book. We looked at the notion of projection. Perception is projection. And we gave you the 7 steps of embodied restoring. And I hope that was very, very helpful. The veteran storms into the room, the sound of children laughing, feels the chaos, but says, "You kids calm down." But it's an unhealed echo of a childhood where they themselves were in danger, unsafe places in a war zone. The perception is a projection. What we cannot accept inside, we reject outside. What we cannot love in ourselves, we judge in others. At perview.org, we help with that issue. We enter the sandbox. Sometimes they even do things like putting toys in the sand and say, you don't have to talk about it, just put your toys down there and tell me nothing about it at all. Don't say a word. And later on, if you want to say something, maybe it'll give you a new angle on what's going on. So in closing, we've dealt with effects and with causes, with projection, the 7 processes of embodied restoring that my wife and I do at our ranch in New Mexico, but we also travel to other countries and do it. We give webinars, we give speeches. You want somebody to talk at a conference and you want to hold their attention, give me a call. This is David Bogie at perview.org. Thank you. Have a good day.